Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We're well into the new year, just a few weeks into it. And how's that New Year's resolution coming? Am I putting stress on you? Have you started one, stopped one? What's going on? Well, we know that a new year can affect us. We have all new hopes and dreams and starting afresh. Well, we're still into that. We can still do that. But as we know as adults, life throws at us a lot of things. If you've looked at your gas bill recently, we know the price of gas has gone up. We want to stay warm this winter, but geez, paying our rent, paying our mortgage, the price of gas, the price of food, all these are stressors on our lives. All these impact us. But what if you're a child? What if you have an adverse childhood experience? How do you overcome that? We can overcome a lot of things because there's help, there's neighbors, there's family and friends. But if you're a child and you're living with this, how does that impact your life? Well, in the program today, we're going to discuss a class called Mind Matters: Overcoming Adversity and Building Resiliency. It's offered February 14th through May 2nd. From 9 to 10 a.m. through our Bernalillo County Extension program. On the program today, we're going to talk about how you can sign up for this class, but also give you some of the finer points about childhood adversity and why it is so important to all of us that that child, when they become an adult, are able to overcome any adversity that has been thrown at them. Because we know life throws at us a lot of stuff and we got to deal with it. The class is called Mind Matters, but it takes more than just our mind. It takes our community and Bernalillo County Extension to help us solve these problems. So please stay with us as we learn more about this class and how we can help. You know, if you play blackjack or maybe poker, aces is great to have in your hand, right? I got 4 aces. Well, ACEs also stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. That's not so good. On the show today, we're going to talk about a program called Mind Matters: Overcoming Adversity and Building Resiliency that you can take, a family member can take, to help with ACEs. And we're going to find out all about that today. I'm making a face because, Dianne Christensen, another topic, a needed topic to discuss in this new year. Yes. Tell me a little bit about adverse childhood experiences.
I first learned about ACEs a few years ago. I was attending a conference, and one of the speakers was speaking about adverse childhood experiences and the profound effect it has on your longevity. People with a high ACEs score live 20 years less than people that don't have or have a low ACEs score.
And that's the scoring of the experiences. So you're saying
Yes.
people who've had an adverse childhood experience
Yes.
could live 20 years less. Let's talk,
Yes,
what are adverse childhood experiences?
Adverse childhood experiences are things that happen before the age of 18. And why they have such a big impact is that your brain is being formed. And so some of those things are physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
Okay, that's kind of an easy one to detect. A child who is abused physically,
Emotionally, verbally.
What's an example of verbal abuse?
Just being told that you're stupid all the time, and just really degrading vocabulary, that type of thing. And then if there's drugs or alcohol in the home, if there's divorce or separation that occurs when a child is growing, if one member of the family goes to prison is another one. Domestic violence, if there's a lot of domestic violence going on in the home, that's another one. Let's see, I think I've hit all of them. So what it is it's called an ACEs questionnaire, and you can Google that. You just put it into a browser and ask for the ACEs questionnaire. It's a list of 10 questions. And you just answer the questions yes or no, and at the end you come up with a score from 1 to 10 of how high is your ACEs score. And that's good knowledge to have.
Some of the questions just are: have you been abused? Is there divorce? Are they pretty much the same questions?
Yes, the things I just went
through. Do you have any
through.
of those in your family? So,
Yeah.
but one of those could be detrimental? I mean, you could have a low ACEs score saying your parents were divorced, and that could affect you growing up.
Yes, it does affect you growing up, and just having knowledge of that is so helpful. But what happens if people aren't aware of how they have an ACEs score, they're more prone maybe to some unhealthy behaviors and those kinds of things. And so the whole point of this class is to help people overcome things that happen to them as a child. They don't have to be a victim to that. They can absolutely have build resiliency around it and live healthier lives because of it.
And once they do that, it's important because at this point, without the resiliency, without learning how to cope, they could die 20 years earlier than a person who didn't have a high ACEs score. You also gave me information that 1 in 6 adults experience 4 or more types of ACEs, adverse childhood. Again, you went through the list. We covered most of those. A parent in prison, a parent divorced. A lot of people experience that.
Right.
But then also the domestic violence. They may not everyone may have, but now it's part of the ACEs score. The parent losing a job, not having a home, I imagine, is part of it.
Yeah, physical and emotional neglect. That's, if your basic physical needs were not met or your basic emotional needs were not met as a child, those are, again, 2 indicators.
And it shows at least 5 out of the top 10 leading causes of death are associated with these childhood adverse experiences. 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Boy,
they showed us a difference in brain scans of children that had an ACEs score and those that didn't. And their brain scans look completely different. Just because of the brain formation and the impact that trauma has when a child's brain is being developed before the age of 18. Because as adults, we all have traumatic things that happen to us as well.
Yes, we do.
But our brains are more fully developed. We have acquired coping skills. So that's not to negate that you have things that happen to you later in life, but this is particularly with children under the age of 18.
Preventing ACEs and these adverse childhood experiences could reduce the number of adults with depression by as much as 44%. So
yes,
parents, a leading cause of depression could have started as a child, all of these things. So your course that you're offering, February 14th through May 2nd, they can sign up, obviously online, Bernalillo County Extension Services.
Yes.
Easily Google it. I think Mike has the email address or the website. They can call the office.
They can call the office, yes. That would be fine too.
Let's get into these coping skills that adults need now to affect their ACEs score. Not affect the score because if they've had adverse childhood experiences, there's no way to negate those, but you can learn to cope with those.
Yes, I found the class to be enormously helpful when I took the training. Some of the strategies they give you for coping with stress were just new ones that I'd not heard before, but were so very helpful to me. In fact, when I was going through the class, I was having some stressful things going on, and I couldn't believe the difference that just using some of the little, it's a very practical class. It give you a lot of good tools, coping tools, and then also ways to deal with stress and adversity when it comes to
Can you give us some of those ideas, the new ideas?
One of them involved a concept called tapping, which is actually just tapping at different places through your body, which at first I thought, I don't know about that, but I have found that to be so helpful to me. It's just a little tool that they use.
Explain the tapping, please.
Well, it's quite involved, so I don't think I could do it on the show, but it's just basically acknowledging what you're stressed about. And because you're tapping at certain points on your body. Now, I would not have believed this, except that I started using it, and it is very, very helpful. It's been very helpful to me. And
Give me an example of how you tapped.
For example, maybe what would be an example? I am very stressed about being on TV today. So you would think acknowledging tapping the stress would be hard, but you just, I am very stressed about being on TV today. I am very stressed about being on TV today. And you just go through these different places on your body, acknowledging your stress, and it reduces it. It's quite amazing. So that's been a tried and true, that's research-based and evidence-based tapping as a tool. So this isn't, this class is research and evidence-based. And so that, another one is called peripheral vision, where you focus on your peripheral vision. Again, I would not have thought, I'd never heard of this before, I would not have thought it would be helpful. But I'm a person that, in a class like this, I want to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. So I think if they say this is going to help me, I'll give it a whirl. And then maybe everything is not for everybody, but if you can get a few tools that help you when you're highly stressed, it can be very helpful. So whether you have an ACEs score or not, I think this class is great. I'm going to offer it just to the general public.
And the peripheral view is supposed to do what? If you're...
It causes you to just be aware, you're focused out here, and it really does, it sounds crazy, but it really does reduce stress. I was just amazed when I practiced it. So a lot of, and they do the others, mindfulness and breathing and different techniques. But what I like about the course, it's very positive and it's very practical. Yeah.
Coping. It teaches coping skills as an adult for something that happened when you were a child. The participants learn to address their physical, relational, and mental health needs. Mm-hmm. Give me some examples of coping skills that people can use as adults if they've had adverse childhood experiences.
They're just, again, these are just tools, I think, that acknowledging, I think a lot of with ACEs is just being aware of what happened to you and not having to live a life in reaction to it. That you can acknowledge but not be a victim of it for the rest of your life.
And how can you not be a victim?
Just by learning healthy coping and resiliency, coming back from it, not living out your life in reaction to what happened to you as a child, because really it's not what happens to us in life, it's how we choose to respond to it. But when you're a kid, you don't know that. And so that's why it's really important as an adult to kind of acknowledge, yeah, some of these things did happen, but I'm going to move forward and not let them define my life.
Of course, you mentioned the brain scans. That's a little difficult to overcome, the development of the brain of people with the high number of adverse childhood experiences. Their brains haven't developed, so it's a little hard to overcome that.
Yeah, and the great news, though, is that we're learning so much more and more about neuroplasticity, and that's the brain's ability to rewire, and so children that have a lot of things happen to them, there's this part of our brain that's very emotive. We respond with a lot of emotion, versus the front part of our brain is where our rational, thought is more connected. And so if you have a lot of trauma in your life when you're a kid, you're always responding with that emotional part of your brain. And so, but it's amazing.
Even as an adult.
Mm-hmm. So,
that's why
so we can learn
work
new ways.
Work-related or relational things as they're adult, because they learn to react with their emotions as a child. They're continuing to do that. They're kind of stunted in their development to use the front part of the brain.
So our brain can rewire. We can learn new neural pathways. That's why these stress tools are so helpful, and different ways of thinking about things and those kinds of things. You don't have to live in this big fight or flight response to every single thing that comes into life. If you are given some tools, you find out which ones work for you and you practice them on a regular basis, it's life-changing.
Can you give us more tools?
A lot of them are mindfulness. That's just being fully present with where you are. A lot of people think they get it confused with meditation, which is more Eastern religion. This is mindfulness, which is just being fully present. So when I go for a walk, I can be thinking about everything I have to do when I get home, or I can, another one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is 5 things that you see, for example, 4 things that you hear. You're really in touch with all of your senses. So when I walk, I think, what are 5 things that I see? What are 4 things that I hear? Oh, I hear the birds, I hear the wind in the trees, I hear the garbage truck. It's really helping you to stay fully engaged with where you are at that present time. And it really does reduce stress, and it makes your life more enjoyable. You're really present each place you are. You're present.
5 is what you see. 4 is what you hear. 3 is what you smell. 2.
Yes, I always get them confused, but yes, yeah.
Smell, and what's 2 and 1? 2.
I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
Taste is 1, and then there's different versions of it. 1 is often one emotion that I'm feeling. Just being aware of your emotional.
And that takes away stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
I always think
so many good tools.
When I get done, I feel good knowing I have a list to do. Also, the program helps, again, with coping skills, identifying the adverse childhood experiences, but also sets people on a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just helps them to really create a plan for moving forward, acknowledging these things did happen, but really creating a plan for how they're going to utilize the things that they learned in this program. And the reason I decided to offer it, yes, for people that have an ACEs score, but for people that don't. I mean, I just get generally stressed about a lot of different things. I just find that about myself. And so any class or helpful information that I can learn some more of these tools to help me manage just the everyday stress, because the stress isn't going to go away. We all have stresses in our lives, and particularly a lot of new stress is coming into our lives with the way the world is changing so quickly. And so whether you have an ACEs score or not, I think this course would be, you'd enjoy it. It'd be learn a lot.
It's already February through May. I guess it's once a week?
Yes.
9 to 10. Now, is that in person, or do you?
We're going to do it on Zoom, just so that we can engage people from all over the state. If they'd like to take it, they can.
Is there a charge for the class?
No, it's free.
No. As we discussed, a lot of information on your website. Again, encourage people for the new year to look at your website.
Yes, so many
ideas of coming up in the new year. Some things on Zoom or some things in person.
Yes, it's a combination of things. It's bernalilloextension.nmsu.edu, and all our classes are always listed there. So how to register is listed there for whatever they're interested in.
Anything else you want to share on this one, Diane, in terms of that's kind of surprising to you? I mean, the tapping was, actually I learned recently, and we had it on the TV program, just a touching regarding chiropractic things. You don't have to jolt or snap person back, but they said by just touching very parts of the body, the spine, the neck, sends attention to that area, and the brain and the body then fix itself.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just some of those things that are available out there that we're just not aware of that can make a difference, in people's lives. And I think that the takeaway also is just, if you have young children in the home, just to be aware, that our choices matter, in the life of a young child. Or if you see a child in need, you can absolutely make a difference in that child's life. And just the idea of maybe trying to reduce some of these kinds of situations happening in homes.
That's a good point. If the adults know that they're fighting, they're bickering, have an adverse effect on the child that could remain with the child forever, I shouldn't be so surprised. I've experienced family situations such as that, but maybe the parents might work harder
Yes.
on hiding it from the child so the child doesn't experience it.
Right, yeah, that these things do matter, that it is so important, that you're raising children in a healthy home environment.
Without the abuse, without the domestic violence, without a parent going to prison, or the drugs, all of that, the drug paraphernalia on the table affect that child for years and can shorten their life and can cause mental health and physical health ailments. You have your little booklet in front of you. We've got quite a few minutes to go. Sure,
Okay.
some other things.
Just, there's some things like coloring is one thing. When I first heard about coloring, I thought, oh gosh, I don't know about that. What I have found, though, is I noticed when I'm
Show the picture.
listening, this workbook is I like it a lot because if you want to color while they're talking about this particular session, they have an interactive thing that you can do. But I observe myself that when I'm really listening intently, like to a lecture, I'm usually doodling. And it's because when I'm doing something else, I can think better and absorb better. So that's just the idea behind coloring, I think, is just to engage you. It helps you to listen a little bit better. Not everybody, but some people are wired that way. There is, so in this class, there are 12 sessions. The first one is learning how to soothe yourself. When you're highly stressed, learning about soothing yourself.
What are people?
That's focused breathing. The peripheral vision that I mentioned is in that one. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which I also mentioned, is in that one. Coloring is that one. And then discovering your emotions. Just what are your emotions? Discovering your emotions. There's a tool that you can use, a body scan, where you're able just to relax and you think about from the top of your head and you kind of work through your body all the way down to your toes. And you just try and relax all those parts.
Actually, I took a yoga class once, and in Shavasana, when we were laying down, she had a soothing voice. She was from England, and she said, now we're at your eyelashes are heavy, and then she went to the nose, and she would go down the whole.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that?
It relaxes you as you're just working on relaxing, and there's some that are very involved and then some that are just kind of, you can do a body scan in a few minutes, but it just helps the everyday stress. And then emotions when they work and when they don't. A lot of things that maybe we've learned is growing up as children, we emulate that. But if you didn't have a healthy emotive life in your family, you don't know how to respond. And so helping people to see emotions when they work and when they don't. In lesson 3, the difference between emotion and through and a thought and the internal journal. And this was very interesting about what we tell ourselves, our internal verbiage that we tell ourselves. And sometimes I think that we make up story to fill in gaps that we don't have knowledge for, and so it's kind of helping you to just kind of be aware of your internal thoughts. And that, I do a lot of work with that, helping people change the way they think. And
how can we do that?
Just identifying, a lot of times we tell ourselves really unhelpful things, like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? I'm so stupid. Well, is that helpful? No. A better way of thinking of like, oh, I made a mistake. That's okay. I'll learn this. I've learned a lot of things in life. I'll learn this as well. I'll try again. That's much more motivating, much more positive than beating yourself up, telling yourself you're an idiot, that kind of thing.
But some of these things are from the childhood experiences.
Right.
Would be negative thoughts, I imagine, that people are negatively thought that I wasn't loved, my parents didn't care for me, we lost our home, my father is in prison, all these things. How can they overcome those thoughts?
Brene Brown does a lot of work around this, and it's about being a wholehearted person and believing that maybe they were doing the best they could with what they had. And that's the definition of a wholehearted person, that generally we believe that most people, given what they had to work with, did the best they could. So if your parents were abusive to you because they grew up in an abusive home, and that's what they were given, did they do the best they could? Maybe they did. But you don't have to repeat that. You have the opportunity to change from your generation on.
Then you're not feeling as much of a victim if
Yeah.
you give them credit for doing the best.
Yeah, and
They had limitations.
it engenders forgiveness and letting them off the hook, and and you have an opportunity to be an agent of change in your generation and to stop that cycle. You can choose. You can make those choices each day.
That would be something positive. We have 2 minutes left. In our remaining 2 minutes, what would you like to share to encourage people to take this, that it's new and novel and research-based and effective?
Yeah, and I just want to say, as we age, it's really important to have a growth mindset and to be learning new things and to building these new tools into our lives, because we can absolutely, in the new year, we can change the outcome of our lives by the way we think.
Mind matters. Right. By the way we think.
Yes.
And again, especially for these kids, these adults who are children with adverse childhood experiences can live longer.
Yes.
And overcome some health issues if they affect their mind, because it matters so much. Got a lot of exciting things. Dianne Christensen over at Bernalillo County Extension. They can just look online. There's a phone number to call, Google it, and find out all the different course offerings. And again, Mind Matters, Overcoming Adversity and Building Resiliency starts February 14th, Valentine's Day. What a wonderful time to have a little love. And what did you call it? Open-mindedness?
Yeah, growth mindset.
Growth-mindedness. That's a new term for me. Thank you, Dianne Christensen. Thanks for watching the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.